didn't believe in education, didn't believe in the medical system, didn't believe in the government. He just really didn't believe in any of that. So they were living very... Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is a little different. In today's video I will be sharing some books that I have been listening on Audible recently, just in case any of you are into Audible like I am and you are searching for some book recommendations. I'm going to be sharing 5 books with you today. These are books that I have listened to recently in the past few weeks and months. I'm just going to share like brief synopsis of those books, and then like my takeaway message from those books, at least what I got from listening to those books. I don't want to give too much away, just in case you want to pick it up and read it, or you want to listen to it on Audible. You still have a chance to do that without necessarily knowing every single detail. So let's jump into the video. But before we do, I want to touch really quickly on what I'm wearing. The top that I'm wearing is actually a peplum top. It's a long sleeve peplum top that I made myself. If you keep up with me on Instagram and you've been following me along on Instagram for a while, then you know that I do sew. I haven't done much of any sewing in the past 3 years. It wasn't intentional. First I had the baby, and then COVID happened and no one was really going anywhere, so there was really no point of me making outfits. But now that, you know, everything is opening back up again, I have started to slowly get into sewing. And I recently made a dress this past weekend for an event that I attended. I posted that picture on Instagram, and a few of you mentioned or asked if I will ever get back to sewing, or if I would be filming sewing videos here on my YouTube channel. And the answer is yes. Not a hard yes, but just a slight yes, because my sewing room right now is in complete disaster, and the setup is not really conducive to filming videos. But once I'm able to get all of that squared out, I'm definitely going to be showing some, you know, quick, simple sewing tutorials on this channel. So stick around for that. It might not be anytime soon, but I promise I will be including some sewing video at some point. Alright, this video is not about sewing. It's about the books that I have been listening to on Audible. Because I don't have the physical book with me, I'm just going to insert a picture somewhere on the screen of that book, just so you can follow along and know which book I'm talking about at any given time. Reading for leisure has been something that I have done for some time now. I can't say I did that in college still, because I hardly even had time to read my assignments and my textbooks in college, let alone read for leisure. So in college I didn't do much of it, and then when I graduated college I picked it up back again. I would go to the library once a week and pick up a book, read it, and then return it within a week and pick a new one up. And I did that for a while, but then, you know, going to the library just got a little bit much, so I started ordering my own books from Amazon. And then I discovered Audible three years ago, and you know, the reason why I switched from reading hard copy books to Audible is simply because I never really had the time to pick up a book and sit and read like I did in the past. There's so much going on in my life these days that I barely even have a time to sit and rest, let alone pick up a book. And I thought maybe reading at the end of the day before I go to bed was a good idea. But by the time I get to bed, I'm so tired that I would read a page and then put the book away, and it just got the book really got boring, because I wasn't reading it at the pace for me to follow along really well. So Audible is for me to listen to books, and I typically listen to them when I'm driving. I do a lot of long distance driving, especially when I was going to the office. My office was a little further away, so I would listen to my books then. So, but now I still listen to it mostly in my car when I'm driving. You get to, you know, listen to a book and be done with it without necessarily picking a book up and reading. So I really like Audible for that. You can listen to it at the gym, traveling, in the airport, whatever it is, you can listen to Audible. So it's very convenient in that way. But anyway, let me stop rambling. I'm gonna get into those books. The first book I'm gonna talk about is Educated. Educated is a book that Michelle Obama actually recommended. I think she was on the Ellen DeGeneres show, and Ellen asked her what book besides Becoming, her book that she would recommend, and she said Educated is one that she's currently reading, so I immediately downloaded it and listened to it. And this book is about Tara Westover, who is still very much alive. She recounts her life living in rural Idaho. She comes from a Mormon family. Her family, especially her dad, didn't believe in the Western way of living, didn't believe in education, didn't believe in the medical system, didn't believe in the government. He just really didn't believe in any of that. So they were living very rural, like pretty much off the grid. She has a few siblings, and none of them were born in a hospital. They were all born at home. None of them ever went to school. They didn't even have social security numbers. That's how rural her lifestyle was. And there were so many different family dynamics. There are some behavior issues in her family and some mental issues, and she talks a little bit about all of that and how she overcame some of those issues. But for someone that has never stepped a foot in a traditional classroom, she actually ended up going to college and getting her PhD. You're gonna have to read the book to see how exactly she was able to do that. One of her brothers played a huge role in that, but you have to read it or listen to it if you want to see how that came about. But she then talks about her struggles going away to college, and how her family dynamics shifted after she left home, and then how she tried to repair some of those broken relationships. And then she also talks about her struggles, being that she came from a really small rural town and she doesn't really know much about the world. All of a sudden going into college, she had to overcome a lot, and she talks a little bit about that in the book. She went on eventually to get her PhD from Cambridge. So it's a really fascinating book for me to read. Especially, I got to see how some people live differently from me. I mean, I'm pretty sure there's still families like Tara Westover's family that live the same lifestyle that she was brought up in. It's very fascinating how some people live. But the one thing I took away from this book is the whole idea of education. She puts a huge emphasis on education and how education can simply transform someone's life. It certainly transformed her life, and it opened her eyes and her life up to so many different things that she wasn't even aware of, just by simply deciding to pursue a life of education. So yeah, that's a really good book to read. Really easy read. She's a really good writer, so you're not gonna be bored reading it. It's actually a quick read. Honestly, I finished that one very fast. So I highly recommend Educated if you're looking for an Audible one. Next book that I want to talk about is Becoming by Michelle Obama. Now this one I feel like everyone has read already, especially if you're a young black female like me. You've probably already read this book. Becoming is a book that Michelle Obama wrote about her life, literally from the very beginning when she was born in Southside Chicago, some of the neighborhoods that she grew up in, her family. She talks about her brother, her mom, her dad. We don't really hear much about her dad, but in this book you get to hear a little bit more about the kind of man that her dad is. Unfortunately, he's no longer alive, but she talks about him a little bit in the book, so you're just gonna get a sense of who he was as a human being. And she also talks about going away from college. She talks about her high school, her friendships, the kind of person she was growing up, her social life. And then she talks about going away to college and then eventually going to Harvard Law School and then getting her first job at the law firm where she met Barack Obama. She really talks about all of that. And then she talks about their road to the White House, what the steps were, like how they got from where they were living in Chicago all the way to the White House. She also talks about becoming a mom and raising a family and some of her struggles. Like, she is a human being just like us. A lot of people, I'm sure, can relate to her. I certainly was able to relate to some of the things that she talked about in her book. And then she talks about their life in the White House. We get to see a little bit behind the scenes of what life is in the White House. Some of the things that she wrote in the book, I didn't even know happened in the White House. But when you listen or read the book, you're gonna get to see a little bit of what the private life of a first family looks like, and how maybe even her kids going to a friend's house for a play date, the Secret Service has to go to that person's house days in advance to scan the property, make sure there aren't any weapons or any suspicious things on the property. And then even when they're at the play date, the Secret Service is always around, keeping an eye out. So it's very fascinating, actually. Yeah, so she talks about all of that, and then she also talks about how she started transitioning out of the White House once their 8-year term was over in the White House. So it's a really interesting book to read, especially if you're a young professional, a female. She lets us as females know that we can have it all. You can raise a family, you can be that fierce professional that you can be. You can be stylish and fashionable. You can do it all with grace. I mean, her famous quote that I know everyone talks about is, when they go low, we go high. She talks about, I mean, Michelle Obama did this first lady thing with such grace and class and dignity. We didn't even hear about any scandals with that family. So yeah, you just kind of get a sense of who she really is. We did see a lot in the media and in their life at the White House, but her book talks even more on that. One thing that I got about from that book, again, like I said, I know that I can be a good wife. I know that I can be a good mother. I know that I can be a professional. I know that I can be an entrepreneur. I know that I can still be stylish while I'm doing all of this. And I don't have to step on anyone's toes to get to where I'm going. I can do it with grace and dignity. And she showed us that. She was able to do that. One thing that I got from that book that I took away was how, you know, as young professionals, especially for me, I know what I bring to the table and I know what my experiences are and my education background is, but a lot of times I'm a little bit timid, if you will, when I in professional settings want to speak up and really to go after what I think I deserve. And this book really showed me that you can go after it. Like, you should know your worth first of all, and you should always strive for more, challenge yourself, and go after what you deserve. She found her, she had positions where she told them basically what she wants her salary to be, what she wants her dynamics in that position to be, while, you know, getting something out of the job, but in turn giving to the job as well. And, you know, just really finding a job that you can balance all of these things and still be happy. It's one thing that I learned from listening to this book that I have already started applying to my personal life. So yeah, definitely pick this up if you're a young professional, female, black female, looking for inspiration. This is a good one to listen or read. The next book I'm going to talk about is Americana by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. Chimamanda has written a few books and I have listened to quite a few of her books, but I really like Americana because it resonates with me a lot. Being a black immigrant female in the diaspora who is trying to strive through education and using education as a catalyst for me to get ahead in life, I can really relate to the main character, Ifemelo, from this book. I mean, I was reading this book many times and I'm like, I think she's writing about my life, because it sounds exactly like some of the things that I have been through going to college. Ifemelo recounts her life where, you know, she grew up in Nigeria and then she moved to New York to stay with her auntie, where she also started going to school. She went to college, she went to Princeton, and the whole book is just really an account of her life, some of the experiences, some of the relationships that she encountered, just the trajectory of her life living in America and she does this from the perspective of a black female non-American immigrant. I hope that makes sense. The stories that she told, she was looking at the American culture and what America is all about from that lens. And that's exactly who I am. I am a black female non-American immigrant. So like a lot of the things that she talked about, I have experienced in my life one way or the other. She also touched a little bit about her childhood sweetheart and how they both experienced different lives, and then how in the end they ended up coming back together again. So you have to listen or read to see how that all of that happened. Obinze was her sweetheart, and he found himself in London, but his encounter and like how he lived his life in London was completely different from how Ifemelo lived her life here in America. Obinze also showed us another perspective of how immigrants live when they come to the Western world. There's some of the struggles that, you know, some immigrants have encountered. I know many people that have similar stories as Obinze living in London, and I also know many people, my friends and myself included, that have similar stories as Ifemelo living in America. And you know, just because I'm black doesn't mean that I see America the same way as maybe an African American who was born and raised in this country may necessarily see America. We may see it in from different perspectives. You really have to read this book to know exactly what I'm talking about. Chimamanda is a writer whose style of writing I really admire, and I always tell myself that if I ever was to write a book, her style of writing is one that I will emulate, because she writes so flawlessly. The transitions between the paragraphs and her sentence structures, it's just done very flawlessly that sometimes when you're reading her books you might even think you're reading poetry. That's how good she writes. But yeah, Americana is a really good one to read if you are like myself and you want to read a book that you can relate to, or even if you're not and you kind of want to see how other people view America. That's a good book to pick up. So I'll definitely recommend that as well. The fourth book I want to talk about is Homegoing by Ya JC. Now, Homegoing is a book about slavery. Plain and simple, that's what the book is. But it's slavery told from the perspective of a storyteller. So it's not a boring slavery history book that you may have read in US history class or whatever history class you may have taken in the past, you know, learning about slavery. But if you want to learn about slavery from a storyteller's perspective in a more easy way, I think this is a good book for you to pick up, especially now that Juneteenth is a holiday. And if you want to know more about slavery, Ya JC talks about slavery from the very onset of slavery, literally from how the Europeans went into Africa to kidnap people and put them in dungeons and then put them on boats and then bring them to the Western world, how some of the elders in these villages that people were being kidnapping were actually the people selling off some of their own village members and family members to the white man to bring here. She also talks about how really bad, just really awful the conditions were in the dungeons and in the boats and ships that brought them to the Western world. And then she talks about, you know, life on the plantations, like what that is about, how transactions happens and how people were even sold into slavery, and then some of their life on the plantations. You know, some of the slaves were actually reserved purposely for the slave masters to date. Some were also reserved for this to carry the children of the slave masters, and even some of them were breastfeeding children that were not even their own, because you know the master's wife or whoever it is didn't want to do it. It's just, and then somehow some of the slaves would serve inside the mansions, how life was on those plantations, what the dynamics are, like the punishments some of these slaves received, and how they escaped. How even though some people were free from slavery, some were still in slavery. So the freedom didn't happen at once, okay? There were people that were free and there were still people very much in the trenches. She also talks about how, you know, once people left those plantations and were quote unquote free, you know, some of the struggles that they faced, you know, starting new lives, relationship, families, starting their own families, you know, just it's a lot. It's a lot. And then in the end, the book comes a full circle where a lady who was first kidnapped in the village her child's, you know, the family line, the little girl returns back to, you know, Ghana, where her parents, her forefathers, her ancestors were once before, and how they, you know, it just really comes full circle. This book resonates a little bit with me because the same shores in Cape Coast where some of the slaves were first taken from Africa were the same shores that my father grew up on. These were shores that my father was fishing on. These were shores that my dad was swimming in. These were shores that my dad was walking barefooted with his friends. He grew up there. So like just listening to it, and then like some of those places that I know very well was just so fascinating to me. But yeah, you really have to listen to this book if you want to get a little bit, learn a little bit about slavery. Again, like I said, from a storyteller's perspective. I'm not gonna lie, this is a little bit of a hard read for me, only because I took some things a little bit personal. But again, be open-minded if you're gonna listen to this, because you will get a lot out of it. So yeah, JC, Homegoing, really good one. I have listened to a few others as well, but I'm just going to talk about one last one, and then stick around to the end of the video. I will also talk about some of the ones that I've listened to briefly, and then some other ones that I have on my list to listen to. So yeah, make sure you stick around till the end. The last book that I'm going to talk about is also by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, and this one is called Purple Hibiscus. Purple Hibiscus is about a young girl who came from a wealthy family. It was her and her brother and her mother. They lived in a house in Nigeria where her dad was wealthy and was very well known in their community. They went to some of the best schools, but their dad was very, very abusive. Not just to them, but also to their mom. He was just a monster all in all. Like, in the eyes of the public, he was one person where he was loved and cherished and praised for his good work that he does for the community, but behind closed doors he was a complete monster. And for them to escape that kind of life, they would have to spend time with their aunt and their cousins, and spending time with her aunt and her cousins just really brought so much joy to her. Her name was Kimberly. She was so much in search of freedom. She just wanted to be herself. She didn't want to be under the control of her dad anymore. She didn't want to be under the control of the structures that were laid out for her. She wanted to be her own person, and she was striving so hard to do that, but it was very complicated for her to achieve that. But like I said, spending time with her cousins was a way for her to get away from that a little bit, and just be free and be the young, vibrant young lady that she was. She, you know, her life for her aunt just really reminds me of how I grew up in Ghana, just really carefree, running around in the night, chasing the bugs, you know, just running around in the rain, playing with other kids in the neighborhood. Just a free, pure, innocent childhood was what she experienced when she was with her aunt. In the end, her dad passed away. You have to read or listen to find out how exactly that happened, but that's how they eventually got their freedom. And then her aunt and her children also had to move away. So in the end, everybody kind of went their separate ways, but Kimberly ended up getting her freedom. So you just kind of have to read to see some of her struggles and how that kind of changed once her dad was out of the picture. Like I said, I was able to relate a little bit to some of her life, especially when she was away from her dad. So yeah, Purple Hibiscus is a really, really good book. I will recommend this book to young teenagers. I mean, I read it, but if you're my age, you can read it, but I will say anywhere from teen up to an adult, you can pick this book up because it's a really, really good book. But yeah, those are all the books that I want to talk about today. I'm also going to mention a few that I have listened to that maybe if you're interested, I might review in some of my upcoming Audible review videos. But a few that I like: Half of a Yellow Sun, also by Chimamanda. Ghana Must Go, that's also a good one. And I am currently listening to A Promised Land by President Barack Obama. So that's one that I'm listening to right now. I'm almost halfway into it, but I really like it. It's very captivating. Might do a review on that as well. But those are the books that I like so far. On my list of books to listen to right now, I have Love in Color by Bulo Babalola. I have Open Water by Caleb Nelson. I have Patsy by Nicole Dennis Banner. The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett. Native Son by Richard Wright. Stay With Me by Ayobami Adebayo. The Secret Lives of Baba Sage's Wife is one that I really want to listen to. That one is by Lola Shon Yin. I hope I'm not butchering this name, gosh. Aisha Atlas also is one that I want to listen to. Oh, and then the book by Trevor Noah, Born a Crime, a good one on my list to listen to. The Girl with the Loudon Voice by Abidare. Destination Wedding by Diksha Basu. The Thing Around My Neck by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. Behold the Dreamers by Mbolo Mbue. Give Me the Child by Mel McGrath. The Woman He Loved Before by Dorothy Comsin. And then An American Marriage by Tayari Jones. These are all books on my list that I want to listen to. I really love listening to Audible. So yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you pick up some of these books for yourself. If you have already read some of these books, leave your quick synopsis or summary in the comment section below. And if you haven't read any of these and you're looking forward to reading or listening to some of them, let me know which ones you want to listen to first, because all of these are equally good books. You're not going to regret any of them. I like them all equally, and as you can see, I have a huge list of books that I want to listen to in the future, so I will be doing more of these videos as I listen to more books. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I am trying to get to 1K subscribers, so if you haven't already subscribed and you're watching this video, please subscribe. Hit that subscription button below. Don't forget to comment, like, all that good stuff. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you back here in about a week for my next video. Thank you and bye.